Welcome to Books for Success. Today, we're delving into the wisdom within Reinventing Your Life by Jeffrey E. Young and Janet S. Klosko. Reinventing Your Life is a manual on how to pull yourself out of negative habits and improve your life. By identifying key stumbling blocks to growth or life traps, and presenting ways to overcome them, it guides you towards sustainable personal growth and happiness. Who's it for? Anyone who feels stuck in the same old negative loop. People looking to understand themselves better. Psychology buffs. Before we begin, subscribe and ring the bell for notifications if you want to keep receiving the knowledge of book summaries about health, wealth, love, psychology, and much more. Don't be shy about dropping your book suggestions for us to summarize. Also, you can use this video as an audiobook summary. Let's grow and succeed together. What's in it for me? Change the harmful behaviors that hold you back. Do you feel stuck in the same negative pattern? Has a swirl of bad choices and raging emotions followed you since childhood? If so, you may be caught in a life trap. One of the authors, Jeffrey Young, had a revelation during his early years as a cognitive therapist. He was helping many of his patients change their behaviors and become happier and healthier people, but he also had a growing number of patients who weren't improving. He began to notice a common thread among those who were not getting better, and that's when the lightning bolt struck. These patients were all caught in repeating patterns of self-destruction that began with some kind of childhood trauma. They were caught in life traps. In this summary, you'll learn all about the 11 key life traps that we may face as individuals, as well as the types of childhood neglect that lead to them. But most importantly, you'll learn how to escape these life traps in 7 actionable steps. Climbing out of a life trap is difficult. This summary may provide enough information to help you escape your life trap, but you might find you want the kind of comprehensive explanations and examples that can only be found in the book. Or you may feel like you need to see a therapist in person to safely climb out of your life trap. With that said, let's get to work. Abandoned Michelle. Michelle's father left when she was 2. Her mother stayed, but she was an alcoholic. Sometimes mom would be gone for days, binge drinking, and Michelle would be left in a worried panic. Even when mom was home, she would drink and wouldn't be present, wouldn't be a mother. Now, Michelle has recreated her childhood environment by dating Thomas. She's 31 and wants to get married, but he won't fully commit, even though they've been dating on and off for 10 years. They've broken up 3 times, and each time Thomas leaves, Michelle goes through a whirlwind of crippling emotions. There's the panicky fear that this breakup is real and he's never coming back. The grief so heavy Michelle feels like she can't move. The anger so hot she wants to break something, anything. And when Michelle and Thomas are together, she lives in constant fear that he is going to leave, again and for good. Michelle is stuck in the first of our 11 life traps, the abandonment life trap. Life traps start to form when something is done to us in childhood by our families or our peers. Maybe we were criticized, deprived, abused, or, in Michelle's case, abandoned by our parents. Perhaps our families were overprotective or overindulgent, and that has negatively affected us. Or maybe we were excluded or bullied at school. When we recreate our damaging childhood environment as adults, we build our own life trap. In Michelle's case, she was abandoned by her parents, and even though she was hurt at the time and knows now how harmful it was, she still recreates the situation with Thomas, who she feels may abandon her at any moment. Life traps take over our lives and control how we think, feel, and act. They lead to self-destructive behaviors. They trigger overwhelming emotions, like anger, anxiety, fear, and sadness. They are very difficult to change because they are ingrained into our very beings. Michelle's life trap is so deep-rooted that she feels a powerful chemistry with Thomas, an attraction so strong it keeps her in the trap. But change is possible. The first step to escaping your life trap is giving it a name. In the next section, we'll describe the 11 life traps and the traumatic childhood experiences that, typically, lead to each one. As we're going through the list, keep in mind that you may have only one life trap, but it's common to have several of them weighing you down at once. One life trap may be dominant, but the others are still hanging on and causing damage. 6 needs, 11 life traps. Children have 6 core needs: safety, connection to others, autonomy, self-esteem, self-expression and realistic limits. When these needs are met, we mature into well-adjusted adults. When they're not, we can develop life traps that permanently derail us. If there's a lack of basic safety and security in our childhood, we can fall into the abandonment life trap, like Michelle. Or the mistrust and abuse life trap, which is the expectation that people will hurt us by lying, humiliating, harming or taking advantage of us in some way. Stuck in this life trap, we avoid all close relationships because we fear anyone we love will betray us. We all need love, respect and understanding from our families and peers to feel a true connection to others. When we don't connect in childhood, the two life traps we can develop are the emotional deprivation life trap and the social exclusion life trap. If you feel that no one truly cares about you, and your need for love will never be met, you likely didn't get enough love from your family and are stuck in the emotional deprivation life trap. If you feel different and isolated from the rest of the world, and you were shunned by your childhood peers, chances are you're in the social exclusion life trap. People stuck in these traps sabotage relationships before they can develop. Now, some parents are so overprotective, or so enmeshed in their children's lives, that the children never cultivate a sense of autonomy, and they sink into the dependence life trap or vulnerability life trap. When you feel like you need support 24/7, or you can't handle basic life tasks on your own, you're caught in the dependence trap. If you live in constant fear that the worst is about to happen, no matter how unrealistic that worst is, then it's the vulnerability trap keeping you stuck inside your house. When we're overly criticized by our family or friends, it's hard to develop self-esteem, the feeling that we are worthwhile. If this happens, we can get stuck in the defectiveness life trap or the failure life trap. Defectiveness makes us feel inwardly flawed. We believe no one will love us, so we're afraid of love as adults. And you feel painfully inferior to your peers in terms of achievement, at work, school, sports or other areas, then you are caught in the failure life trap. We can fall into the subjugation life trap or the unrelenting standards life trap if we are not allowed to express our needs, feelings and desires, causing our self-expression to be stunted. When you sacrifice your own needs out of guilt in order to please others, you are in the subjugation life trap. If you place excessive emphasis and expectations on things like your social status, financial standing or looks, you may be in the unrelenting standards life trap, and you are probably expected to get all A's and finish first in every race as a kid. Some parents let their kids run wild with no consequences. When this is the case, we lack realistic limits, and we can get stuck in the entitlement life trap. If this happens, we don't care about the feelings or needs of others, and we become upset when our needs and wants aren't met immediately. Getting stuck in any one of these traps can be easy, but getting out is always hard. Most of us look for unhealthy escape routes, which we need to know about if we're ever going to make real change. Let's have a look at them now. The common coping mechanisms. How we develop and deal with life traps depends on our temperament and environment. Two siblings growing up in the same abusive household, for example, can react differently. One can fight back while the other becomes passive. The fighter may have been born with a more aggressive temperament, or perhaps one of the parents was the abuser and the other the victim, and the passive child just happened to model the victim. While different people react to life traps in different ways, there are three main coping mechanisms: surrender, avoid, and counterattack. To demonstrate these three mechanisms, we'll look at three men, Sam, Bobby, and Alex. They're all stuck in the defective life trap. They feel inwardly flawed. But none of them cope in the same way. Sam is a 20-year-old college student who surrenders to his feelings of defectiveness. He mumbles and blushes when you meet him. He puts himself down in front of others and is always apologizing, even when it's not his fault. He feels less than with his peers in every way, academically, socially, financially. His only friend is constantly making fun of him, and Sam agrees with every word. Sam grew up in a family that belittled and criticized him. As an adult, he behaves in ways that ensure he will continue to be demeaned. He acts ashamed, befriends people who are mean to him and distances himself from anyone who is kind. He thinks, acts and feels defective, completely surrendering to the life trap. Bobby avoids his sense of defectiveness by drinking. He's 40 years old and has never had a close relationship, even with his wife. He's most comfortable with his casual drinking buddies at the neighborhood bar, where they never talk about anything personal. Unlike Sam, Bobby makes sure he is absolutely not in touch with his defective feelings. He's repressed the memories of his domineering father, and it's not until he starts LifeTrap therapy that Bobby even realizes he has low self-esteem, or that it began with his dad. Now for Alex. Alex counterattacks his defective LifeTrap by feeling, thinking and acting like he is special. He looks the part. Confident smile, expensive clothes, flashy watch. He also puts himself in situations where he can feel superior. He married a meek woman, for example, and he chooses sycophant friends. Alex does all this so he can feel the opposite of how he felt as a child, which was devalued and neglected. Counterattackers like Alex can be successful. Some famous actors, rock stars and politicians are counterattackers. But most suffer from inner turmoil and feel defective beneath their beautiful surface. You might recognize yourself in one of these men, or maybe all three of them. Fortunately, you don't have to follow their harmful examples. There are other ways out your LifeTrap. Escape plan. Remember Michelle, the 31-year-old stuck in the abandonment LifeTrap with her non-committal boyfriend, Thomas? While looking for help during a breakup, Michelle found LifeTrap therapy. It uses components from multiple types of therapies: psychoanalytic, experiential, cognitive, pharmacological and behavioral, to change LifeTraps in 7 steps. It may sound simple, but it's far from easy. First, you need to identify your LifeTrap. After realizing she was caught in an abandonment trap, Michelle had a sensation common to many LifeTrap therapy patients. She said, "I guess I always knew on some level one had issues with abandonment." The second step is to understand the childhood origins of your LifeTrap. To do this, you must remember your childhood. Just let the images flood your mind. And when they do, you need to communicate with your inner child. Comfort them, give them advice, empathize. This may seem silly at first, but most patients find it very beneficial. The third step is building a case against your LifeTrap. Most people stuck in LifeTraps accept them both emotionally and intellectually. They feel trapped and they know there is no way out. This step casts doubts on those beliefs. Make a list of pros, reasons why your LifeTrap is real, and cons, reasons why it's not. Michelle made a list of all the people who haven't abandoned her, and all the ways she actually pushes Thomas away when she's trying to keep him close. If your list of pros is longer than your cons, ask yourself if the pros are true, or if you were brainwashed into believing them in childhood. In step 4, we write letters to the parents, siblings or peers who helped create our LifeTrap. This gives us a safe and appropriate way to vent anger and sadness. Actually, sending the letters is optional. Step 5 requires thorough and honest evaluation of your LifeTrap. You must write down all the ways your LifeTrap impacts your life. Then, write down how you can change all of those ways. Not only did Michelle write about Thomas, she also wrote about clinging to her friends for fear they would abandon her, and how she could change that. In step 6, you break the patterns you identified in step 5. Start with the changes you feel confident you can make. Michelle started with her friends. She gave them more space, and she stayed calm when they didn't immediately return her phone calls. Step 7 is simply keep trying. This process is hard, but don't give up. Challenge your LifeTrap until all of the self-destructive patterns are broken. Final summary. When children's core needs aren't met, it sets the stage for a lifetime of trouble. As adults, those kids will recreate their harmful childhood environments, and they will keep falling into the same messy LifeTraps that go with it. They'll stay stuck in those traps, unless they're willing to do the work it takes to escape. Facing your fears, being honest with yourself and keep on trying. Escaping LifeTraps is no easy feat, and dredging up childhood memories can be so painful we might need a therapist to help. You'll need to put in constant and consistent effort, but you can climb out of your LifeTraps. And when you do, your life will take a sharp turn for the better. Thanks for being part of our insightful voyage. If our summary piqued your interest, we encourage you to dive into the complete book for a deeper understanding. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more content if you're new here, and share it with others who might find it valuable. Keep on reading, discovering, and advancing until our next adventure.